Hello friends, Donna here. Welcome to my studio, welcome to my channel, and welcome to this little tutorial. Now you guys ask me for things and you know I am very, very grateful for it. I like it, so ask away. Someone asked about transfers, more about transfers. And I've done other transfer classes, so I thought to myself, well, what else can I do? So I shot something, beads, and then I finished it up and I realized, oh, wait a minute, I could say this. So I shot it again and something else occurred to me. And so this time I'm gonna get it right. All right, sometimes it takes a little while, and thank heaven it's just all on my phone, so I can just delete what I did. No problem. So what we're going to do is a little bit of an exploration of laser transfers, and we're going to make beads like this. They're encased laser transfer beads. That's what we're gonna do. So let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about what you need to make something like this. You're going to need backing clay. In other words, the clay that lies underneath the image. Now that clay should either be white or pearl, some light color, because you see these transfers or these copies, this ink is not opaque. It is transparent or translucent. So you're going to see this underneath this. Not always. Here, this very, very dark area, you probably wouldn't see it. But any place where it's light, like the clouds here, yeah, you're going to see this. So you want to make sure that your transfer sits on a clay that is a light color. White, pearl, pale ecru, something like that. Those are fine. This is actually white underneath here. All right, you're going to need transfers. These are laser. You know, laser are the machines that are more expensive, but the ink tended to be less expensive. The printer you probably have at home, chances are it's an inkjet, where the printer is cheap, but the ink is really expensive. Okay, so that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about laser, copy store laser. You can have a machine like this in your home. I have one in my home. Works fine. Okay. Now, let's talk about the paper itself. See, the paper here is very light. See the paper here? It's very heavy. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. They both work just fine. So you don't need any special paper to print on. Okay. Then you're going to need that translucent top, because the reason why this is shiny and I was able to sand and polish it is because there is a very thin sheet of clay on there. The clay is translucent clay. Now, don't mix these up. Okay, it's very easy to. Let me tell you, I've done it. Ask me how I know. Don't mix this and these up. They look very similar, but they're not the same. Okay, boom, boom. And there's Louie barking, boom. And now we're ready to get started. So let's start with method 1. Now method 1 requires that your print read backwards. Look at those words. Are they reading correctly? No, they're not. So method 1, you have to flip the text. We're going to start with white clay. We're going to transfer onto white clay with the flipped text. Okay, my peeps, let me, clean tile. Clean for me. My clay has been rolled through setting number 3 of the pasta machine. I think this is plenty thick enough without being too thick. No need to make it too thick unless that serves some kind of purpose in what you're making. In this case, it serves no purpose. So you want to make sure that you don't have any lumps of clay on the back of this. Now let's secure it to the tile. And the easiest way to do this is just to lay one edge down, secure it like that. Hold this side up and work your way down like so. You see, as I go, I am pushing air pockets out. Yeah. You just let it flop down and try to smooth that out. You're probably going to be sealing in air pockets. Let's take that and just set that aside. And now we're going to choose a cheesy poster, movie poster. Yep. Cargo. Oh, look, the Mummy, Outrage. You get the picture. These are cheesy posters from movies in, like, who knows, the 30s. The important thing is this is copyright-free imagery. Yeah, copyright-free. And so, being copyright-free, I don't have to worry about using any of these. Cowboy. The Merry Widow. How romantic. Obviously, I cut something from down there that I liked very much. Oh, here we go. Look, I just happen to have another sheet. I don't want another line. Okay, I should have decided this before. Madam whatever. Gloria Swanson. Ooh, I don't have a bead with her on it. Okay, so that's something you're just going to have to be aware of. You're going to want to either use your own imagery or you're going to find imagery without copyright in the public domain. All right, face down. Now I'm just going to trim the excess, the overhang. I don't need a margin that big. Let's get rid of that. Like so. And now I need water. I'm going to move this over so it doesn't get messed up. Okay? And I need a towel. Of course. I have a million towels. Let's use this black towel. Put it underneath because this process is just a bit messy. It's okay. I like it, actually. Water. Spray the back of the paper and start rubbing. This is the thick paper, the very thick paper. Sometimes if you're using paper that's really thin, it will buckle. You put water on it and it kind of buckles. That's not happening with this paper because it is quite thick. So as you can see, all I'm doing is rolling the paper off the ink. So when you start initially, you can press pretty hard. Thing is, you always want to kind of roll this way out, especially initially, because it's quite easy if you push this way to pull up a corner or pull up the ink at the perimeter. So just keep rolling out from the center, okay? Just scoot it off. And as you get closer to the ink, you're going to apply less pressure. Like so. Okay, here we go. How about that? A Madame Sans Jean? Well, never heard of that one. Okay, well, obviously I have a little more work to do. thing is, when you're doing this, it's not just the way it looks, it's also the way it feels, right? You'll be able to feel little bits of paper that sometimes you can't even see. So I got a way to go before I get there. I was going to cut, but I'll just take you through more of this process so you can see. Now, with some papers, you're going to find that as you're rolling, if you look at these little bits, you see there's no ink on them. But sometimes, I've worked with some papers where it really just pulls the ink off. It doesn't like literally pull it off of the background. It's just that these little bits will be tinted with some of the ink. Okay. Now, working on the tile is important. Just imagine what this would be like if this were on, let's say, a piece of deli paper. This would be moving all over. I wouldn't be able to get any pressure on the clay. It would just be moving, and I would be chasing it around, which would make the whole process about 100% harder than it is now. I'm just going to scoot it off like so. And that looks really good. It looks good, but I won't know absolutely how good it is until the surface dries. Because when the surface dries, that's when you see paper residue. If there is any, you'll see it then. So let's pause. Let me let this dry, and I'll show you what it looks like in a few minutes. Okay, peeps, so let's take a look. I am going to bring this up. I'm going to stop saying okay, peeps. Okay, but I won't stop saying okay. Oh, see that right in the middle there? See that right there? That's paper. You can see it when it dries. So if you see that, then of course you just want to take your water again, spray, and just start rubbing. Just lightly, circular motions, and I feel many little teeny bits of clay underneath my fingers. Yeah, so I really don't want to feel that, so I'm going to keep rubbing like this and just trying to scoot them off. What I don't want to do is I don't want to push them into the clay. I want to just move them off the surface of the clay. I mean, you can actually kind of put them in. You don't want that. You can trust me on that. You just don't want that at all. Now, the areas that probably will reveal any paper problem the most clearly would be in the dark areas, like the black. There isn't a lot of black on this particular transfer. Or image, excuse me. Well, now it's a transfer on clay of an image. Of a cheesy... I've never heard of this movie. All right, so I think that that's pretty good. Now, I'm going to let this dry for a minute. And then I'm just going to lightly take a clean finger, if I can find one, and just go across the surface. And if I feel any paper, then I'll address that. And if it's a big problem, it's more water. If it's not, I'll just try to dust it off like that. It's not a big problem at all. Okay. Oh, we're ready for the next phase. All right. Now it's time for our translucent clay. I'll be back. Translucent clay. This is Kato POLYCLAY. Now, you guys know I don't ever tell you stories. I don't tell you stories. Kato POLYCLAY is not the clearest translucent. So if you use another brand, let's say Cernit or probably some Polyform product, your translucent will probably be more clear, okay? The problem with my clay, this clay, is that when we had to remove the phthalates, one of the things that happened was the translucent and the white, well, number one, they brown a bit. They're not as white stable, but also the translucent is not as clear. So depending on what clay you use, you're probably going to have, you'll either have my result or you'll have another result. And the other result would be that the actual piece is more clear. The translucent is more clear. Let me zoom out. Now, regardless of what translucent you use, you don't want to use this. See this? Oh, yeah. Well, this is the leftover from all of these I've been making. Thing is, do you know how much folding and rolling I'll have to do to make this into a uniform sheet without any little air pockets or issues? You don't want to know. It's not easy. So what you're going to do is always start from a nice clean block of clay. Okay, so don't need much of it. So I'm just going to take a piece. Oh, remember to get all the paper off. Set that aside, and this is where we're going to start. Now I am going to condition it. First, I'm going to clean under the rollers of my pasta machine. Can you hear me? I'm actually cranking my machine and taking this and running it underneath the rollers. Okay, done. Now, this is pretty thin. Going to start off at like maybe 2. Ta-ta! This is not conditioned clay. Reset to 3 or 4 and continue this way, folding and rolling, folding and rolling. Now you want to do this because you don't know how old your translucent clay is. You don't know if perhaps wet ingredients have separated from dry, and you don't always see those things in raw clay. So you want to make sure. So I'm going to go through probably about 20 times, like so. I think I'm at about 10 now. But this is something that I think is important for you to do. Because it may appear that everything's fine, but as I said, in translucent clay, you can't really see it. All right. Okay, now it's time to thin this clay. I'm going to take this piece, this here piece of deli paper, and put it underneath the rollers of my machine so it will catch this. I want something clean underneath. So now let's take this and let us send it through setting 6. Now, if you have a machine that eats clay in very thin settings, this is setting 6, what I want you to do is take your clay, put it on the rollers like this, okay? With your left hand or right hand, whatever, hold it up and crank. Hold it up and crank so that you're maintaining tension above the rollers. Okay, then the clay is a lot less likely to shear and shred. Yeah, trust me on that. Ask me how I know. Okay. Good. Because while my clay is not sticky, when it gets very thin, it can stick to itself like that. Right? Now that was through setting number 7. I've got to go through to 9. So make my life a little bit easier and cut some of this excess off. Set this aside because I'll be able to use it for another bead. So set that aside. Now I'll use this for the next bead. Okay, now let's send this through. Paper under the rollers, setting number 8. And now finally setting number 9. What is that? Oh, come on. Setting number 9. Yeah, this is one of those situations where you wish you had a third hand or an assistant. I have neither. I have just me. All right, so here we go. Yeah, so I can imagine that if you're using a sticky clay, this might not be the most fun. Okay. Now, I'm just going to secure like that. I'm going to try to secure my clay like that. And then, as I did before, oops, not even straight. How about that? Yeah, looking good. So then I'm going to slowly drop this and then stroke as I did before like that, because this is even more important. You don't want to capture air underneath this translucent sheet. Yeah, no air. No, it's not the easiest thing, because when you're working with sheets of clay this thin, they do have a tendency to form air pockets. Now, it might be a little bit difficult to see because light areas, see, I'm not sure that that's a light area or if that's an air bubble. Probably an air bubble. So let's pierce it and see. And if it gets dark, yes, see, it was an air bubble. There's another one. So as careful as I was, and I was pretty careful for me, I did trap some air. So keep just a little, well, this is actually a better one, an acupuncture needle handy. Should probably always be handy. And this gets added to that pile of translucent scrap, like so. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to use my brass rod, and I'm just going to smooth the surface. But you know what? It's really important that you do this before. You grab cornstarch. And you dust the surface with cornstarch so that the brass tool, the brass rod, my little fancy brass rod, does not pull this clay up off the surface, because it could. It could. Remember how sticky that translucent clay was? Well, you know what? I'll tell you something. It would rather stick to this than the ink on the transfer. Yep. You can trust me on that. Let me scoot myself closer, because now we've got to get this off. Now, how do we get this off? It's really hard. You have to kind of use parts of your body if you're like me. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking this and scooting it down, and it's resting on me. I'm down here. I'm going to take my clean blade, and I'm really pushing against the tile. And now I'm going to, sometimes it's a little hard to start, slide the blade underneath. As you can see, there's nothing left on there. And then if there's a little bit of distortion at the leading edge, all you have to do is pull it out a bit. Now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll it through my pasta machine. And the purpose of that really is to try to push more air out. If there's any air between the transfer and the translucent on top, I want to push it out. So I'm going to start this off at, like, let's say setting number 2. I don't know how thick this is exactly. And putting the longer side on like so. That was good. Let's do setting number 3. Making it a bit wider. And now I can restore the general shape by just pulling, right, like that. And that looks good. I mean, I think I've got a little bit of air right here, here and here, here, just little spots. So inspect it, and if you identify anything like that, then you're just going to give it a little poke, like so. Because after it's cured, you won't even see those. Okay, now I'm going to make my scrap core, so I'll be back. I'm just gathering up all, you know what, let's just use this. Let's use all this scrunchy part. So I'm going to gather up all my scrap, and I will be back. I added more clay, so I have a greater volume of scrap going here, which is what I need. All right, so let's roll it up. Roll it up, roll it up. So we'll finish bead number 1, and then I'll show you the transfer process for number 2. I won't have to take you through all of this, like this part of the process, because it is the same. Okay, so what I want to do here, now I'm just going to take and whip this across to heal that. I could roll for a very long time, or I could do a little whipping and then roll and be done with it. Now, I've been making some mighty big beads. Yeah, mighty big ones. So, what does this tell you about the process? If you want to use this and make a small bead, then you're going to start with a much smaller transfer because it just gets bigger. It just gets bigger. Now I'm going to trim away the sides. Let's trim to a nice part like that. This goes into my scrap. Let's find a nice place here. And I'll trim the top and the bottom. These old movie posters. Now something tells me I'm going to need, it could be this big. It'd be a mighty big bead. I'm just going to do kind of a guesstimate. I'm going to make this smaller. Now, let's see. I bet that's right. I bet that's about right. So let's go with it. Gloria Swanson. Ooh. All right, so now the sides of the cylinder are very smooth. I'm just going to do this. Sometimes I'm a little less careful about this part of the process, but really I don't want any air between this and this, right? Okay, so I made it a little too small. It's okay. All right, so let's cut the excess away. Okay, let's say I did transfer the edge enough for me to see. And now here, because I've got the white underneath, I want to tuck that white in, right? I don't want that white to show, so I'm going to just tuck it in. Just kind of pushing it down like so. Sometimes I do a better job of this than at others. I've made a couple of beads that had a white stripe. But you want to do your best. Also went a little bit off there. Okay. Not too bad. All right, let's cut the bottom. And cut the top like so. Now some of the beads that I've made, I tried to sort of fit the image, but it ended up, I had these odd cuts at the top and the bottom. So instead, what we're going to do now is we're just going to take and gently stretch this clay up over the end. Now it does distort the image at the top and the bottom, but you're going to get distortion. I mean, you're going to have some kind of issue. So let's make it this issue. Now I'm going to make it a little thicker in the middle, okay? And the best way I have found to do that is at this point, when I take the ends and I just squeeze a little, forcing the clay in the middle to go out just a bit, okay? And just do it slowly like this. Also want to roll. Let's address this right now. I have to clean that up. Okay, so at the join, I'm just going to try to heel this up like so. Kind of drawing the two sides together by rolling in from out to in, and then just lightly scraping across like that. Okay, now let's continue. And let's close the ends. Just going to try to just ease the clay from the sides up over. Like so. Okay. Okay, so see that light area there? That's actually the translucent clay from the top sort of congregating at the top. So if you don't want that, all you're going to do is cut it off. Just cut it off. And then take something like this and push the white down in and try to pull the sides up like so. Maybe you don't ever get rid of it completely, but I think you can make it better. right. So let us close the other end the same way. Like so. Okay. Now, the translucent has congregated again at the hole, but you know, it's less noticeable because the transfer at this end is actually lighter. I think I'll just leave it. I think we'll be fine. And now you can shape however you want to shape. If you want the center to bulge out a little more, then you can do that by just pushing at the ends, trying to get that clay to move to the middle. I think this is a good shape, like that. Now, it's very round. I tend to flatten them. So I think I will flatten again. That's a good join. That's not bad at all. The pattern looks good. Okay, so let us flatten this just a bit, like so. You want to make absolutely sure that this seam is well healed, because that's kind of the point of weakness. If there's going to be any break, it's probably going to be across there. So I'm just starting by flattening the two sides, like so. And then, see, it's there. It's a little big for my palm. Ordinarily, I would just press the bead between my palms and call it good, but all right, I think that looks pretty good. Oh, that's some clay I picked up. Oh, is that clay or paper? All right, let's set this aside and we will start on version 2. Ta-ta. So for version 2, that's where we are, version 2. Just going to use this nice Asian image. Remember this? I had started to thin it out, but it's not thin enough. I had gone through setting 7, so I've got to get this through setting 9. All right, so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to roll this through 8. Now through 9. Now through 9. I picked up something there. I'm not happy about it, but I'm going to live with it for now. Wah. All right, so let us just put this on the tile. So remember last time I put the white on the tile. See, here's the difference. We are now transferring directly onto the translucent clay. Now, I am going to see if I can get whatever that is out. I don't know what you are. Ah, yes, got it out. Okay, we're fine. Okay, now, I keep saying now, for this particular method, you want the image to read correctly, not backwards, correctly. Okay, getting rid of the excess. And here is where the tile is really important, because this clay is so thin, right? You wouldn't be able to do this if you weren't working on a tile. Okay, so here we go. Water. Wah-wah. Towel. Okay, number 2. Thinner paper. And I think it's pretty easy to get off, but it is much thinner paper. Okay. So I will keep working on this. As I did before, and I shall return. So for this one, I thought we'd use pearl. The pearl is just a tad dry, however. So I'm going to add some conditioning bar because I want the clay to be a little bit stickier. So let's add that. I'll work it in and I'll be back. Okay, so the clay is quite a bit more supple after adding that. I don't want the clay to be really, really dry. First of all, I want this to stick to the ink, right? Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so let's do the same thing. The surface seems to be nice and smooth. I don't see any air bubbles or anything, so let's just give this a go. Now, secure, hold up, and press the pearl down like so. Okay. Now I'm going to trim the 4 sides. Yeah, you don't want this backing clay to be too dry. Going to do the same thing. We're going to roll this through the pasta machine as we did before. Here's my translucent, my pearl. Yeah, it's very easy to mix those things up. You gotta believe me on that. So let me take this and just roll. Should help, hopefully. And I'm going to remove it from the tile once again. Now, it's a little more difficult when you have this very thin translucent. Yeah, it is. It's a little easier the other way to remove it from the tile, but you know, wish me luck. Okay, let's start with a thinner blade. And you know what, this time I am going to spray water on the blade. And hopefully that will help me. Push down very hard. Okay, so that was good, and I believe the water did help somewhat. It's still on there. And once again, I am going to roll this through the pasta machine. Now, on the translucent side, I am going to put a little bit of powder. Not much, but a little bit. Now, I don't know that this would happen, but it's always a possibility that something this thin and this sticky decides it would rather stick to my pasta machine than to the clay. I don't think it'll happen, but it's always possible. Setting this edge on the rollers, I am rolling through like setting 1. Okay, slid right through. Setting 2. I'm going to take this slowly. Setting 3. That looks pretty good. Let's adjust this again. So you can tell with these beads, it's less about the actual image and more about sort of a pattern that I'm putting on the bead. Now, I think this bead's going to be smaller. That's fine. Okay, let us take our core, the same core. I'm going to reduce it further because this is smaller. Trim the 4 sides. And I'm going to do precisely the same thing. I'm going to take this and I'll wrap it around here. So you saw me once, you don't have to see me again. Okay, I'll be back. Here are the 2 beads, of course not baked yet. So what I'm going to do is take my very fine needle, go right down here and right down here. Make sure everything's looking good. And then I think I'm going to poke some holes in various places, like some of these dark areas. Yeah. Just randomly, because these are areas where air can escape if we happen to have any trapped air inside. Yeah. Okay. Do the same on this side. I've already done the 2 ends. Let's just kind of randomly, just tiny little holes. Tiny holes. Okay. Now these are going in the oven. I'm going to lay them in a bed of baking soda in here so I get some support along the back. So we're all set. Now in the oven they go. Okay, so these are cured. Now you can tell how much thinner, right, the translucent is in this bead. Remember, I rolled it thinner than I did this one. This one. Okay, now we're going to do some sanding. Okay, I'm going to start out with this wet dry sandpaper, which is just 320. Okay. All right, wrap it around the sponge. Now this is just water with a bit of soap in it. Just dishwashing soap. Ooh, so much smoother. Now, because the translucent is so much thinner than this bead, you know, I'm going to go kind of light on it, right? Not too heavy when I sand, particularly around the ends, because the clay is thin here, but it's thinner here. Because remember, I pulled it and stretched it from the side so that it would cover the top, which means it is thinner. So, not so much. And it really isn't taking much at all. Okay. And what I really want at this point is just, I just want it to feel very smooth. No roughness. Okay. Now we're going to hit the other one. Okay. Now you see this one is thicker. I know it's thicker. I didn't roll it as thin. I think I rolled this through 3 and that one through 4. I can't really remember, you guys. I have to look back at the tape. Okay. So I'm just going to work on this. Can you hear? You can probably see. I am pushing a lot harder. I'm trying to take off more translucent than I did before. I was much more careful with the other bead because I could tell how thin that translucent is. And what I want to avoid, here, let me show you something. Is that. Yeah, I sanded right through the ink to the white below. And so I'd like to avoid that. It's not too much. There isn't much chance of that happening here. But the other one, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I will continue and sand. Now look at what it looks like now. You can hardly really see what's underneath the translucent, can you? So let me work on this a while and then I'll show you what I do. And just as I was saying, I sanded through. Okay, I better be a little more careful. Yeah, I'm gonna be a little more careful. Because I made a boo-boo. I made a boo-boo. Now these two transfers, or these two images, were very different, weren't they? One was kind of soft and, well, very Japanese. This one. And the other was very bold and bright. Okay, I think I'm almost through here. Just gonna try to be a little more careful. I was just like, well, I'm glad I did it, so you know what not to do, right? Right. It happens. I still like it though. I still like it. It's just a very different looking. It just looks very different from the other one, that's all. One isn't necessarily better than the other, I don't think. They're just different. Now, what could have happened here too, and I might not have felt it, was there might have been a little bump, like a little raised area, because of course, if you have any areas like that, what is going to happen is you'll sand, and there is a chance that you sand the top away, and the top would be the white clay, would expose the white clay. Okay. These were both pretty smooth though, so I suspect that was just me going like that. Okay, I think I'm going to stop now. It is a very sort of muted, soft looking bead. I like it. All right, now I'm going to move on to Micro Mesh 1500. It's 24. Here's 1800. Here's 1500. Now, Micro Mesh is used for automotive work. You know, it's for paint. And so, you know, it's pretty fine because you don't want to just imagine what you would use to polish up or shine up the paint on your car. Yeah, you probably want something pretty fine that isn't going to scratch up that beautiful surface. And that's what Micro Mesh is used for. Okay, so just going over, using kind of a light touch. It doesn't take much. Then I will follow up with 1800, then 24 with both beads. After I've done that, I'll be back. Okay, folks, here they are, bead 1, bead 2. Now I'm going to take them to my buffing wheel. I'll be back. You'll see the difference. So I polished this whole bead. I like it. I like it. I only did half just to show you the difference. Look at the top, look at her face, but then look at the bottom. It's just a little more dull, isn't it? And a bit less clear. So let me finish this one, but I just wanted to show you. Okay, here are, oops, oopsie. Oh, my camera was a little bit, sorry about that. My phone, I mean. All right, so here are beads that I made. These are the beads I made in class using method 1, method 2. Now, because of the difference in the image, you can't really see whether there's a difference between 1 and 2, right? I mean, the images are just too different to even compare them that way. So, is there a difference between method 1 and 2 in terms of the way the pieces look? Well, because I used images that are so different, it's really hard to compare. You really can't compare that with those two beads. You just can't. These were made, okay, I'll show you. This guy was made using using technique 2. This image was transferred onto the translucent. This one was made the other way. This was transferred onto the white. Now, they're not exactly, I didn't make them exactly the same way. So there are possibly other variables. Look at how much bigger the text is here than here. Maybe I spread it out a little bit more. But if I'm looking at just these two, the orange is much more intense here, so is the red. Here, a little more washed out. It's not that I don't like it. I like it, I think it's fine. But that is one possible difference. And when you do it, if you try both ways, then perhaps you'll be able to see that as a difference, or maybe there's another difference that I missed. So what shall we do with all our lovely little beads? Look at all these beads. Yeah, so far they're just things. They have no holes, so they're not technically beads. All right, I think I want to make this into a necklace. And what I'm going to do is it's going to be kind of a lariat type, like this, and then this will go around the neck. The bead will be attached here, and it'll just slide through like that. But of course, not that long. Like it to be kind of up at the neck, closer, actually closer to my neck. All right, so basically this loop just has to be big enough to slide whatever it is we have at the end through. So let's give this a go. All right, I need a babysitter. Help me, help me. See, I found you. Okay, so this cord is actually 3 millimeters. These O-rings, I believe, are 4s. Maybe not. Maybe they're... No, I think they're 3s. So when I say 3, I mean the inner diameter of the O-ring is 3 millimeters. So it is... The inner diameter of the O-ring is the same as the outer diameter of the cord. Yeah, it's confusing. Like when you order this stuff, it can be a little confusing. I'm going to put one more on. I'm going to have 3. 3 up here. All right. Now I need CA glue. Ta-ta. Okay, Loctite. Okay, I'm going to make a nice cut here, angled cut like that. And this will be glued to the side of the cord like that. This is big enough for it to get through. Perfect. I wouldn't say this is like critical stuff, right? It can be a little bit bigger. It could be a little bit smaller. Thing is, the cord stretches, so, whoops, it fell over. I am a klutz. I am. I admit it. I admit it. So I'm just going to hold it there and hope I'm not gluing my finger to... Oh, eureka, I did it. All right, so it's still a little wet. It's okay, because I'm just going to slide this right over. Just like that. Okay, now get over. Don't give me a problem, buddy. Like so. So it is helping me out quite a bit. Let's put this next one right next to the first. Pull you over like that. 3 looks good. I don't think it's necessary for me to glue them into position. I think they're fine. Now, let me just take this and swing it around my neck where I want it to hang. about right there. Not too low, not too high. Just like so. All right. So I'm going to put another 3 O-rings on this end as well. Come here. Come here, you. So I'm not wearing my Apple Watch today. I've decided maybe I'm just too much in the cult. The cult of Apple. Okay, I love my Apple stuff, but I have to admit, I do not like the feeling of kind of being in a cult. Okay. I think I'm going to cut more. This can be actually higher. Doesn't really need to be hanging that deep. And because this is heavy, it is going to pull like that. I'm going to make it higher. Okay. I'm going to live with that. All right, now it's time to do a little bit of drilling. Now, what I have to do is I have to make, first of all, a tiny little pilot hole. And I'm going to take a drill that is much smaller, but, you know, just give it a go. You know, if I started drilling with a drill that was big enough for this, that's really hard. It's much easier to work your way to that size than it is to start with that size. Okay. Of course, it would have been nice if I had a plan to start with, but somebody didn't have a plan. All right, let's try this guy. Okay, in you go. In you go. I think that's deep enough. This one looks looks just a tiny bit bigger. I have a lot of these. I might have to use that tiny bit bigger one. Tiny bit bigger. How about you? All right, let's try you. You're smaller than you. Okay, just gonna see. Yeah. Well, worked. Okay, I need to drill a little bit deeper, I think. Got all the schmutz everywhere. Okay, come on. You can do it. All right, and then this will get, I'll slide these down to the top of the bead. So let me, if only you could see the floor in my studio. Nope, you don't want to see the floor. I'm putting a lot of glue in there. Oh, too much glue. There's a lot, and then there's too much glue. I have to say, I went with the too much glue. Let me just push that down and just glue that to the top. I'm going to hold that for just a moment. Okay, then I'll push those down. Oh, this is cute. This will be cute. I can wear it and it will hang right in front like that. It still looks a little long, and it's quite easy to get. See, look, on. All right, perfect. PIRFICT. Well, here we are at the end of class. It's like the hardest part of class, saying goodbye. Yeah, it's really hard for me. Anyway, here we are again. We're at the end of class, and it's time for us to part ways. I hope you liked the class. I hope you learned something. Now, I would encourage you, please, of course, try other translucents, because you know, Kato behaves a little bit differently. Now, I use only Kato. There are reasons for that, but, you know, no one else is probably in that exact same position. So, anyway, you will find that different clays present a different finished product, something you may like better. So, I know you'll try it with others. Now, let me say one thing. It is quite possible that another clay could be more difficult to work with. All these clays, they're good for something. They're good for something. And depending on you, your sort of normal body temperature, you might find that a soft clay just doesn't work for you at all. Yeah, I mean, that's possible too. So you just have to try and see what happens. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I will say no more about it. And I hope you like the class. And I hope I cleared a little bit up about transfers, because they are not a difficult thing to do. But I personally remember being a little confused by them, because there are some variables that you have to consider. So anyway, it was my pleasure to do this. I had fun. And you know what? I really like this little lariat type thing. I think all these are gonna, they're all going to end up being like lariats like that. Like them. Yeah, sweet. So that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for, thanks for spending some time with me. And if you liked it, please like it. And if you haven't subscribed, but you'd like to, I hope you will. And that's all I have to say about that. Have a great day. And until we meet again, I'm Donna Kato signing off. Bye.